quick disclaimer of this tutorial. This is not really a beginner tutorial, it's more for intermediate, and it's also kind of like a speed run on how to make an inventory system. And I'm not going to explain it in depth, so that's why this is for intermediate people that can just look at code and actually understand it. If you don't understand it, then I do recommend to just download the repository, which is going to be in the description, and then you can just play around with the script yourself and look at what I have done to make this work. But I'm just gonna look what I did to make my own inventory, and you can copy it, whatever, and I just hope that you can make something good out of it. That's the disclaimer. I'll go back to the video. Yes. Hello and welcome to this Unity tutorial where I really want to show you on how to create an inventory system. This is going to be the first episode out of two. When this episode, I will show you on how to actually create some item data and place them inside a scene, and you can actually pick them up and put it inside some inventory UI. Then in episode 2, I plan on to make some UI interaction that makes you able to maybe split items inside the menu or just drop it back into the world. Right now you should be able to see a black screen which shows the order of things of what we're going to do. First step is to create some item data. After that we create some item interaction, and then lastly we make an inventory system which is going to make us able to pick up the item. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is that we're going to make a Unity class called items, and this class is going to be of the type of scriptable object. And scriptable objects are really useful for storing data inside because it doesn't need to be attached to actual game objects. With scriptable objects, you can create multiple item classes which holds their own kind of data. For example, we have one of type wood, stone, a sword, and some birch wood. What I have created for my items, I have used well, which one this is a must need. You need all items must have an ID. An ID is really useful to identify what type of each item you need to be. You can't have one of the same ID, so be careful you don't give some items the same ID, because the ID is useful for when you're gonna create the inventory system, because the inventory system is gonna filter these items based on the IDs. I also of course have the name of the item. You can also have a description. It's all optional. You yourself, if you want to do, you can just make the types of properties that you want for yourself. What I wanted was the name for the actual item, a description for it. We can also have some types like is it a crafting material, like equipment for swords, armor, or some miscellaneous types like mushrooms or whatever. You can also, and I also store that in an enum called types. Enums are just really good to, it's kind of, I personally kind of use it for like an advanced form of bools. Like you can check of what kind of types of halves because of an object. So here I can like categorize items in crafting materials and equipment. I can also categorize them by rarity from common to legendary. I also have game objects for prefabs. That's what I'm going to be able to use because items needs to have a prefab inside the scene, which is the actual item you're going to interact with and put inside the inventory, and also a texture for the icon is going to have inside the inventory. And then I have my basic properties. I have the types, my rarities, the max stacks, the maximum amount of items you can have inside a single slot. You could also have some weight and a base value. And also a very really important thing, create as a menu. You need to do that so you can actually create items inside the editor like this. So yeah, this is the first step you need to do. You can just pause the video at any point and just copy the code. If you don't want to do that and you're lazy, I'm gonna leave the GitHub repository of this project and you could just take inspiration. but this is the 4 items I'm gonna use, and they have each their own description or whatever. Then for the item interaction, here I have used my creative genius of objects in Blender and actually created some game objects. This game object then has this class script on it that is item object. The item object is really simple. It just has a public variable to the base items, which is going to have its stats of what type it is, and also a public info the amount of this item there is inside the game object. So in this case, there's 12 pieces of birchwood inside of this. So yeah, with the item object, we can then make the item interaction. The item interaction then is inside of this script. It has a reference to the camera and also a layer mask for the item layer. If you don't know how to create layers, you go into layer up in the top right corner of the inspector and you click on add layer. I use a layer called item and place it on every single game object, which is going to need to be an item that can get picked up. Then, well, I also have a reference to the inventory system, but I'm going to get to that later. And then I have some text, which is just going to be some text where I can display the actual hovered item that I'm gonna look at. Then inside this void update is where the magic happens. I have a variable, a local variable, a raycast hit, which is going to be used inside of this raycast. The raycast, if you don't know what that is just a function that shoots a line out of a specific position in a direction, and if we hit something, we can get some data from that. So I'm going to shoot out of the camera of the forward axis, like the direction we are looking at. I'm going to put inside the raycast hit variable inside one of the parameters as an output. It's going to have a distance of 2 meters, and then put inside the layer mask. So everything that is not inside the layer mask is going to get filtered out. Then just for some error handling and security purposes, we're going to check that the hit game object actually has this item object on it. If it doesn't have that, we just return and don't do anything. If not, and we actually have an item object on it, we're going to first update the text and tell the player that you can press F to pick up this amount of this item. We have the hit.collider.game object, item object. We get the amount, and then we also get the name of the item. And after that, we can also decide that if we press F, we're going to use a function inside this inventory system that's going to pick up the item. And this pickup item has an argument for the item object, in which we're just going to put the hitted collider inside and give it the item object. And if we don't hit anything, just remember to make the text blank so it doesn't show anything. And that's basically the whole item interaction. Nothing much to it. And now it is time for the script that's going to tie it all together, the inventory system. Before I'm going to show you the inventory system, I'm going to show you the UI that I have made to actually create an inventory system. So the UI right here is what I have used. Let me just show you right here. This is the default UI. It's really simple, it's not much to it. But basically, I just have a panel with a grid layout group. The grid layout group just takes all the childs that it has inside of it and just puts it inside a grid, and you can just modify it however you like. It is pretty easy to use and it's pretty nice. Inside this is a slot. Every single slot has 2 variables, which I'm going to show. A slot has 4 variables, but the 2 public ones is the item inside the slot and also the amount it has inside of it. Then it has two private variables, which is going to be the icon and text amount, which is the two children it has inside the raw image right here, and the text right here. You can see it if I turn on the raw image. It's down here, but displays the amount inside the slot. So yeah, and the slot also has a single public void, which is going to set the stats. And inside of this, we're just going to turn on the children inside of the slots, because it's going to get turned off inside the inventory system by default if there's nothing in it. And then reference to its icons to get these components. And then you're going to set the texture to the items in slot icon, and also the amount that's going to be inside the slot. You set it as the text. It's going to make more sense when I'm going to show you the inventory system. The inventory system has two variables: an array of all the slots, and a game object to the inventory UI. That is going to be placed inside of the player right here. And right now I have an array of 25 slots, which is all the ones you see right here. And of course, the parent object of all the slots is what I also need. Then inside of a wave function, we just do a quick for loop. We're just going to scan, okay, if an item slot has nothing inside of it, then just turn off the children, because it's kind of ugly to look at. I just made it to like get a reference. But inside the void update, this is here we're going to turn the inventory UI on and off. So here we check, we have an if statement that says, okay, if the inventory UI is not turned on, that means that it's not active. And we also press E. When we're gonna set active to true, then it's gonna get a pop-up. Then if we do the opposite, if it's active and we press E again or escape, we're just gonna turn it off. Okay, that's great. Then we have this void right here. This is the pickup item you saw from the item interaction. And this is what it does. So it's going to take a for loop of all the slots inside of this for loop. Then it's going to check every single slot, and it has a few statements, because there is an X amount of different paths and conditions we could lead to. The first one is that we're going to check a slot. Does it have something inside of it? Does it have an item inside of it? And the ID of the item inside of this slot is the same of the object we're going to try and pick up, and that ID is the same. That means we can actually put something inside of that slot of the same item. And we're also going to check if the amount of this item inside the slot is not equals to the actual maximum amount we can have inside the slot, the max stack. If everything is right, this will turn true. And then we will go inside of this if statement first. In this if statement, I have a bool function that will calculate if it hits the max stack, and it needs to have an argument, the index of what slot we're in right now, and then the object amount of what we have. Then inside of this bool function, we're just gonna says if the max stack of this item inside of this slot is less or equals to the amount of item we have inside the slot right now plus the amount the game object will give. If that means it will hit the maximum amount of stacks, and this will turn true. If not, it turns false. That's great. Okay. Then if that happens, we're gonna, if it then does not hit the max stack, that is the easiest way to just done so far, then we're just gonna plus equals the amount in slot with with the object amount and then destroy the object, and then we're going to set the stats of the slot. And then we're going to return because we don't need to run this for loop anymore. Then the for loop closes. If it will hit the max stack, we run this else if. The else if is a bit more complicated, but then we're going to calculate a result that is the needed to fill. The needed to fill is an int function right here, which is going to return the max stack minus the amount in the slot. So if we have, let's say the max stack inside of this slot is 100 and we have 50 right now as of this moment inside of it, then the needed amount to fill in this slot is going to be 50, because 100 minus 50 is 50. This is something we're going to calculate, and then this result is going to be put inside the amount and put it up into the max stack. Then we're going to have a new int function which is going to calculate the remaining amount that will be inside of this object after the slot would be filled, and which is calculated by taking the slot index, the slot amount plus the amount minus the max stack. So if a plus is going to be like 32, like we have two items which each has 66, that together would be 132. And then we just want the remaining amount, which is going to be 32 because the max stack is 100. And after we have calculated that remaining amount, we just set the object amount to that, and then we set the stats, and we just pick up the same object again. And then it will not hit the max stack. It'll just find a new slot and just put the rest of the 32 amount inside another slot, and that's nice. Then the else if right here, we're just gonna check is the item in slot equals to null. If it's equal to null, that means there's literally nothing inside the slot, so we can just take the item in slot, make it equals to the item objects item stats, and then we can plus equals the slot's amount in slot and plus equals the object.amount. Then we just destroy the object game object, and we set the stats for a slot, and then we return. And that's the inventory system. And now I'm going to display this in practice. I'm just going to turn off this inventory panel and click play. And I'm going to play maximized. I don't want that. I just want to play in focused. And then, as of right now, I'm going to pick up this sword, and this sword will be put inside the first slot. Then in the second slot, some stone will be inside of that. The third slot, this birch wood. The fourth slot, we're going to put the normal wood in. It has 62. We're going to pick up this 62. The max stack is 100, but this is to 100, and push the rest of the 32 inside the next slot. Then we open up our inventory, and you can see the items inside their own item slot. I really hope all of this makes sense. I know this is kind of complicated. This is not like a beginner video. This is kind of intermediate. Of course, you can just download the project, try to understand the code for yourself. This was kind of a speed run on how to make an inventory system. But my focus wasn't really to make you understand like all the steps in between. This is just a quick get up. Usually it's better to just try and understand it by yourself. Just download the project and play with it. I will make the next episode soon where we're going to make the UI interaction, and then we're going to be able to maybe split items inside the inventory system. Also maybe display the actual item stats like the description and the rarity and its value, maybe like in gold, and its actual weight, and also drop it back. But this is the basics. that you need to do to make a really basic inventory. Just copy the code, but really do try to understand it. And that is gonna be it. If you do like this video and like the inventory, and you maybe actually understood all the mumbo jumbo I said, then that's great, and I'm happy to hear that. And of course, like and subscribe. Okay, goodbye.